Today we'll have some of the new coaches available. You guys can spend a little time with them. Certainly excited to have them here. This is really our first kind of day all together in the Woody, working together. Had our first couple staff meetings today, and looking forward to get going into February.
All right, we'll open up with questions. I know TV, we've got some, looks like you guys have some issues there. Keith, we'll work on it as we can, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Fourth row left there, Jacob Bench, the lantern.
Cool, gotcha. Well, Ryan, first time we've gotten to talk to you this offseason, I wanted to ask you more about the Rose Bowl in particular. You know, Marvin Harrison getting a chance to start a game, that game, and then the way he performed, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches. What do you see from him this offseason, where he needs to work, and just your impressions from his game?
Well, what we hoped going into the game was to build some momentum, certainly with Chris and Garrett not playing in the game, an opportunity for some of the guys to step up, and we saw that during the game, and I thought Marvin ran some really good routes and certainly stepped up in a big way. 3 touchdown passes in that game was excellent, but I thought he also did a good job in other areas, blocking, and it wasn't just him. You know, I thought Mecca was in there, and Julian stepped up as well, and certainly we don't know what Jackson did, but it was good to see Mitch Rossi step in there too, and excited to have him coming back. So there was a lot of momentum that was built coming out of that game, which is what we hoped for. And then, like you said, as we get going into March and spring practice, we're looking forward to seeing him now take a more prominent role in the offense.
We saw what CJ did in the Rose Bowl, but with a guy like Howard Ford right behind him, what do you kind of see for him this offseason? Where do you want to see him take strides? And just how much confidence does he give you being the number 2 quarterback behind CJ?
Well, now that you have a certain amount of reps under your belt, you're able to now, start to put that on the field. And so he's going to have great opportunity. Devin Brown's coming in as well with an opportunity to compete this spring. So, we're going to have great competition, 15 practices, and we'll see where we're at.
Front row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. I'm just curious about some personnel updates. Is Jerron Cage coming back for a 6th year? What about guys like EA, Taraja Mitchell?
Yep, all those guys are back.
All those guys are coming back.
Yep.
And with super seniors now counting against the 85, where does that leave you scholarship-wise? Are you guys in a little bit of a crunch there? Is that a concern? Or?
Well, I mean, with everything going on, it's kind of a floating number again, as it is year in, year out. I would say now more than ever because just of everything that can go on with the transfer portal. So, we want to make sure that, we obviously would get to 85, but you have to kind of forecast that out. It kind of puts us in a tough spot because you don't want to be left short. So we'll just keep monitoring it and kind of work through the spring.
One more quick one for me. You mentioned Mitch Rossi coming back. Are you guys still going to look for a tight end in the portal, or does Mitch coming back kind of alleviate that situation?
We're still figuring that out with the depth. Typically, we'd like to have 5 tight ends. In terms of our depth chart, we go through our numbers, which we actually just went back through this morning, making sure that all adds up on offense. And then now, with Jim and his staff going through to make sure that the numbers look right in that area. So we have 41 on offense, 41 on defense, and then 3 specialists. So right now we are at 5, so we're okay there. And we're going to kind of see where the spring goes with Cade. He'd like to start at linebacker and, did a nice job in the Rose Bowl. So we'll keep looking at that to figure out, if we make sure we have 5 at tight end, though, but that's the goal.
Go front row right, Tim May, Letterman row.
We're good. Huh? We're good. You good? Competition's good? Never let it be
Oh,
said.
that's nice. That's hard.
Go ahead, Tim.
Mississippi State guy with Ole Miss colors on. What do you think? When you decide to make a call and basically get rid of some coaches and bring new ones in, explain to me how tough a call that was for you from the standpoint of just personally, emotionally, et cetera, because you do develop relationships with these guys, and yet you have to keep arm's length, right, I would think, to a certain extent on how deep the relationship goes, et cetera. But how tough was that?
I try not to let that get in the way of building relationships with coaches and with their families. But we also know that we're at a level of college football where the competition is extremely high and the expectations are extremely high. And I know that more than anybody. And so there's an expectation that comes with that. And, I say it all the time, I have a great job, but it's a hard job, and that's one of the hardest parts about it is going through and trying to make those difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, this is more than that. It's about Ohio State football, and there's a lot of people that are counting on this to be right. And so you got to do the best you can. You ask a lot of questions. You make sure you're making the right decision, but at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut, and you move forward. And, I've had to do that. Not something I look forward to, but it's something again that'll happen just the way it goes. And so it's certainly not the goal, but we have to be able to adapt and move on as things happen.
And, specifically with Coach Knowles, for example, did you want to look in his eye? I mean, did you actually have a face-to-face before you hired him? And number two, what is it that you heard from him that really piqued your interest, and what did you tell him? I mean, how much of it was a two-way street conversation, and how much of it was a, hey, I want this done this way, are you willing to do blah, blah, blah?
Sure. Yeah, no, there was a lot of conversation. I think he probably would say to you, by the end, I asked to do a couple more FaceTimes and a couple more Zooms, and he probably was wondering, what else does he want to see? But I did. I wanted to do that because I knew how important this hire was. But at the end of the day, I was really looking for a head coach of the defense, and certainly his background and all the people that have worked for him and with him have said such unbelievable things. And you watch the film of the way his team plays. They play hard. They have a system. They have answers, and they've done a great job developing. And so when you combine all of those things and all the people that have worked with him and for him, then to me, by the end, when you started going through all the candidates, it seemed like the best fit. And at the end of the day, we had some certain things that we had some common ground on. But at the end, again, when we finished the conversation, I'm going to run the offense. And when this thing's running well, there's a head coach of the defense, there's a head coach of recruiting, there's a head coach of the special teams, and then I'm heavily involved with the offense. If those things aren't happening and now I take away from the offense, then this the way that this structure is built isn't being optimized.
Front row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, the defensive scheme, I feel like more or less has kind of been your vision for things the last few years. Jim's is maybe similar in some ways. Certainly, he gets unique with his front and things like that. But how much leeway, I guess, did you have in your mind in terms of the scheme you'd like to see implemented when you were looking for a hire? And is it sort of Jim is free to do what he wants to do?
Well, we've always felt like we've been able to recruit really good defensive linemen here, and Larry's done such a great job of that. Is that we wanted to start with a 4-down scheme, and based on in 19, I thought we did a really good job of kind of going through and putting the one high defense together, and that year was excellent. And then over the last couple of years, we've had a little bit of some issues here and there, but when it came to making this decision moving forward, we still wanted to start with that foundation. But at the end of the day, based on the personnel that we have, like for instance, we went through and went all the personnel today, every single guy on the team. The goal is to put our guys in position to be successful, and finding a way to do that, that's the key to college coaching. Just like for us on offense, do you want to be in 10, 11, 12, 13 personnel? You want to figure out how to optimize your guys, and that's really what the goal is going to be on defense. And so I think that'll look similar to maybe it did at Oklahoma State. I don't know. That's going to be up to the defensive staff to determine. But there'll probably be some other things too, some just different things that guys do well that are on our team right now, and trying to figure out what those skill sets are and maximize them to be the most, put them in an environment to be successful. And that's really what it comes down to. So that journey has started now, first day in the Woody after coming off the road recruiting. But I know that journey is going to take a bunch of twists and turns along the way.
Perry coached probably the two best corners in college football last year. He's got the safeties coach title here. How did you determine with he and Tim who was going to coach corners, who was going to coach safeties, and how will they work together to kind of coach secondary?
Yeah, both Tim and Perry both have tremendous resumes. You saw, like you said, what Perry did last year, and then certainly Tim's background of not only playing here but his background in the NFL, and they both have great secondary background, so they're going to work together, and that's really something that Jim felt strong about. He likes to really coach the linebackers and be able to have a handle on the front end and the back end, and having two guys back there with the experience that they both have and their resumes is going to be tremendous. And they'll start to build their relationship as time goes on, but just very fortunate to have those guys part of the organization.
Third row middle, Doug Lamorese, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, certainly Jim has more experience as a college defensive coordinator than Jeff did or Kerry did when you hired them here. This idea that you wanted to hire a head coach of the defense, do you feel like that's a change at all from how you viewed things before, or is it similar to how you viewed things before with the defensive coordinator?
I think when you look at 2018 to 2019, one of the the advantages coming in as a new staff is that there was a lot in place, and that was something that I felt great about. We felt strong about, and it was really good. But there was some carryover there, where this kind of allows us a little bit of a fresh start on defense, and I think this gives us the best opportunity moving forward to, when you look again at the structure, the way things are built here, every staff is different across the country. The head coach is involved with different things. Mine obviously is with the offense. And so I think that this gives us the best chance. And I think it was a little bit different because a lot of the guys who were here stayed here. And then, this gives us a little bit of a fresh start.
Having the promotions of Brian and Tony to pass game and run game coordinator, I know everything is collaborative, but how does that change at all your responsibilities with the offense? Is that a sign, are you stepping back even a small percent from the first couple of years with those promotions?
I think when you've had the success that we've had on offense, there's a lot of guys who get poached by other programs. They're highly marketable, and so Brian and Tony are two of them, and so with the success that we've had, we're giving them more responsibility. We're giving them a bump and raise. We're doing a lot of things to try to make sure that they feel like they're being compensated for what they've done, and we've had a lot of success, and that's a good thing. And so that's part of the process and the landscape of college football right now.
And then to tie this all together, you've been doing this head coach thing for a while now. You said different head coaches do it different ways. What in your mind is sort of your ideal delegation of your own duties in terms of your quarterback experience, your play calling experience, your offensive game plan? But you're not just the offensive coordinator. You're the head coach of the entire team.
Yep.
How do you think you have handled that in your first 3 years as the head coach? And is there anything that you would like to change at all, moving forward?
Yeah, I think when you look at the first 3 years, there's been a lot of success and things have gone well, but there's some other things to learn from. And I think to your point, as we move forward, the idea of having the head coaches in each of those areas to really own those areas of the organization and the program is really important. And I think that's something I have to continually do is just make sure that I'm being really clear with the staff, demand a high level of operation, and then hold them accountable to that. But I think too, when you think about the players on this team and the relationships that the coaches have with the players, and then obviously what I have with the players, I think really if you talk to the guys who have gone through the program and graduated, they feel like they're well taken care of when they're here. They're cared about, and that we care about them. In the same vein, we also have to win every game here. That's part of the expectation. So balancing that is something that I think we've done well, but I also think that we can continually, improve on and try to, adapt to the times too, because there's a lot of changing going on right now, and it's something we talk about on a daily basis.
Go right next door, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Tim Walton has NFL experience. Jeff Hafley had that. Kerry Combs had that. It seems like at that cornerback position specifically, you've brought in a lot of coaches with NFL experience. Is that by design, or has it just happened that they've had that experience?
Well, Perry is coming, over to coach the safeties, and so we want to find the best coaches possible. And if a lot of the coaches that have coached in the NFL have coached some of the best players in the country, and so when someone comes in as a recruit, they want to be they want to be coached by the best and be developed by the best. And, I think that's a little bit of coincidence, but also not. If you're trying to go find the best guy at what he does at his job, a lot of those guys had coached in the NFL when you look at their resumes, and Tim's one of them.
In terms of, you mentioned Geron and Gerard Pellier coming back. I think right now it puts you at like 92 scholarships or something like that. Are you concerned at all about, roster crunch with the numbers you have right now?
No, I think we talk about, it's going to take care of itself just by the way that things go right now with the portal. And what I don't ever want to do is be caught, without 85 guys. And so it puts us in a little bit of a tough spot, but we'll keep managing it and try to figure it out as we go.
Just to clarify, Seven Banks hasn't said anything publicly. Has he moved on from the program?
So he graduated, and he's moving on. I do have a meeting with him and his family tomorrow.
Could you give, on the 4 guys you hired, I know you had a prior relationship with Justin Fry, but could you just kind of connect the dots on how you settled on those other 3 perhaps?
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So I kind of shared a little bit with Jim, kind of went out and tried to go find the best coordinator in the country, went through that process. And then with Tim and with Perry, we interviewed a lot of guys, and Jim was a part of that. Made a lot of phone calls, asked a lot of questions, interviewed a decent amount of people to go through the process, and felt like we weren't rushed. In going through the loss we had at the end of the season and having the time during the Rose Bowl to kind of be thorough through that process. And part of it was some of the guys that were already on staff here and saying maybe those guys are the right fit. And we decided that we thought in the end, after going through the whole evaluation process, that Perry and Tim were the best fit.
How about Justin? Was that a no-brainer for you? Were you always had him in the back of your head?
Well, he and I worked together before Boston College, so I know exactly what he can do and how talented he is. He's very, very talented. He really connects well with players, very good technically and fundamentally. And then, he's a Midwest guy. He played at Indiana. His wife's from up in Mentor, Ohio, so they're Midwest people, so that was a great fit.
Hey, clarify something. Did Tim solicit you, or did you solicit Tim Walton?
I called Tim.
You,
Yep.
Right behind Clay, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Hey Ryan, I'm gonna change the subject real quick.
Okay.
An Ohio team is in the Super Bowl, and 5 guys who have played here are gonna be playing in that game. I mean, how exciting is it for this program to have the special connections in this year's game?
Well, I think it's exciting for the whole state of Ohio, just to have the Bengals in the Super Bowl. Certainly, the story of how where they've been the last few years, where they were last year, even this year. They feel like they've been underdogs the whole way, and now here they are in the Super Bowl. So excited for that whole organization, and certainly all the guys who have played. In particular, Joe and everything he's kind of been through with the injury last year, and just his whole journey has been tremendous to be someone to watch and enjoy and cheer him on. But then, like you said, there's a lot of other Buckeyes on that team: Sam Hubbard, and Von Bell, and Eli Apple. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that played really, really well. And so, how exciting to come back to your home state and bring your team to a Super Bowl. And so excited for them, and certainly the next couple of weeks will be great in preparation. And I think they have a real chance to win that game. They've been underdogs the whole way. At some point, I guess they won't be underdogs, but pulling for them.
And kind of back to the original topic about the coaches you're bringing in. I've talked to some of the players, and they said the pride on the defensive side is something they really want to have again. Is that something that Coach Knowles has really expressed to you in bringing back that tradition that this program's had?
Well, I think the guys feel it coming off of that last game, and actually the way they played in the second half of that Rose Bowl, you can feel it. We've been on the road the last couple of weeks, so our players have been kind of chomping at the bit to get find out what's going on, where are we running, what's our scheme, all those type of things, and so we're finally back in the Woody now and kind of get going on that process. But that's a big part of it, and there's a lot of pride, certainly in that locker room right now, and that's what we're working towards.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Ryan. Obviously, the defense did not play at Ohio State standard last year. Was there ever a thought to just kind of tweak it a little bit as opposed to having the kind of overhaul that you did? And how tough a decision, Tim asked you that earlier, to make that kind of overhaul? What finally said, we got to do this? Yeah,
I certainly considered that, and considered a lot of things, and then thought long and hard on it, and weighed heavy on me. But I felt like a fresh start was the right thing to do. I felt like that's kind of what we had been doing the last couple of years, is tweaking it and bringing a guy in and moving a piece over here. And I really want to start fresh and have a system in place so that when something goes wrong, there's an answer to the system and everybody believes in the system. And I just felt at the time that was the right thing to do.
And in terms of Jim specifically, he was in demand. There were a lot of places that were apparently pursuing him. What made you decide he was the guy that you had to have?
Well, just going through the whole interview process, and there was probably 7 guys that I recognized that I thought would be good fits in terms of what we think and in terms of schematics and who was out there and who had done really well. And when you started to kind of cross off some of the names and check the boxes off, Jim was the guy. And I thank Gene Smith for allowing me to go get the best. He never asked a question on it. He said, just you go get whoever you think is the best defensive coordinator for Ohio State this year, and didn't ask any questions in that area and allowed me to go do that. So, really appreciate him, President Johnson, the board, for allowing me to do that, because that's not the case at most places, but I think we got the best.
He's an interesting guy, just the personality from everything I've read. What are your early impressions of him just as a guy?
Very intelligent, former head coach. He's been through it before. I think he'll tell you, he told me he's put in his 10,000 hours, which is from a book, I think, by Malcolm Gladwell. He's really poured his time and heart into this game and this profession, and this is what he does. And so, we have yet to put the defensive system in yet. That's gonna take a little bit of time, and it's gonna be thorough, and it's gonna be done right. But he's very intelligent, understands the game. He's been through it before. He's experienced, and so excited to get to work with him over the next couple of months as we head into spring practice.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, when you talk about the first staff meeting with all these people together, I know the last couple of weeks they've just been recruiting. How much homework is there for them knowing the current roster, if any, before they get in today?
Yeah, so we really spent a good portion of the day talking about our roster and just going through each of the guys, and then a lot of them have a clean slate, which is great for them. I think a lot of those guys like that part of it. Certainly, we're going to watch the film from last year and go from there. But it's exciting for a lot of those guys to know that, and they've been anxious the last couple of weeks to get the coaches back in here. But these guys have been on the road and working really, really hard, just traveling all across the country. And travel's not easy right now with some of the airports and things that are going on across the country. So these guys have been working their tail off to go out and go recruit a great recruiting class and finish off this one right here that we'll finish off on Wednesday, and then head start on 2023. But now we're back at it, and it's almost like you have the recruits that you have outside that are not in the program, and then you have the recruits in the program, because that's kind of the way it goes right now with the portal. But that's what we're diving into this week.
You've gone over this a few times with the tough decisions and the relationships you have with the coaches and their families, but now that part is over and you go into the first staff meeting and you're standing up in front of that group, what went through your mind when you saw this is the group moving forward here?
Just a new group and a fresh start, and new ideas, new perspectives, which is a good thing. It's healthy in an organization, especially when we have guys who have been here for, some guys 5, some guys 7. There's been a lot of people who have been here for a long time, and the continuity's been great. That's a big part of our success here. But having fresh ideas and new perspectives is really good and refreshing.
Third row right, Nathan Bear, Cleveland.com.
You kind of already hinted at this, but the idea of having the 2 coaches who are sort of dedicated to the secondary positions, how much did sort of the expansion of safety in this defense play into that? And did you say that Jim was kind of adamant that that's the way he wanted to set up with 2 assistant coaches who were dedicated?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Jim that. I kind of let that up to him. However he wanted to kind of organize that, and how he's done it in the past, kind of allowed that them to make that decision.
You said that you wanted someone to come in and sort of implement a system. You're talking about this in a little bit of a different way than you were just a couple of years ago, where it was more about, this is the defense that I want to have. Was that a conscious decision on your part that you needed to sort of relinquish that to someone else, or how did that?
No, I think it just happened naturally with Jeff and I's relationship. When Jeff came in, he came in from the 49ers, and really believed in the 4-down, single high, kind of the Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, cover 3 defense that a lot of teams run in the NFL, and really some in college right now who are doing that. And so when he and I sat down and had a long discussion about that, and then sat down with Greg Madison and talked about his background in terms of the run game up front, it just kind of married together naturally, because I felt like those were the 2 best guys at the time to bring in here, and that just kind of worked out that way. And really, when you think about the team that we had, it just made sense, with Chase and some of the guys we had up front at the time. It just made sense with Jeff, and you had Jordan at free safety. I mean, those guys are still playing in the NFL now. So at that time, that was the right thing to do. And but now it's time to make a change.
Knowing then that Jim was then going to now bring in his scheme, was there something about that scheme when you studied it that you thought would fit this personnel, or just that in general you thought as an offensive coordinator, like, this is going to give a team problems?
Both. Yeah, I mean, I think that he does. He starts in a 4-down and then can kind of change from there and really attacks the offense on how they're doing things, just the way they play. But I think when you look at the personnel we have right now on defense, it's going to fit really well with what he's going to do as we head into next year.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, last week, athletic department announced having a new NIL edge team to help facilitate NIL deals for players. What do you see as the impact of having that infrastructure in place, where that's now something that the athletic department can do?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this past year has been a learning experience for all of us to try to figure out where this is and where it's going. Some of the opportunities that our players have had are, in some metrics, the number 1 in the country, just with the city of Columbus, the brand of Ohio State, the brand of Ohio State football. Some of our guys have really capitalized on this. It's been tremendous, some of the opportunities that they've been afforded. And so now the more and more that we can get involved with this, at the administration level to do it. Now, we have to follow the rules, and so we're going to be really cautious about that and make sure we're doing things the right way and be deliberate about what we're setting up. But Gene's on the forefront of this to make sure that we're competing with everybody in the country.
When you talk about competing with everybody in the country, and how much does this come up in recruiting and making sure players have options and helping them in this area when they come here?
Yeah, it's become a huge part in the last 6 months, and I think that's what's created a little bit in the recruiting world some uneasiness because what one place can do maybe another place can't, and trying to figure out what those norms are going to be because it's so new. But we're adapting fast.
Third row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach. Watching the Rose Bowl and the way your offense performed in that game, and having CJ and Jackson back in particular for next year, did you come to a realization that you can win the national championship with that offense, but something had to be done defensively? You couldn't go through another missed opportunity. Was that a kind of a moment of clarity, I suppose?
I don't know if I looked at it just like that. I hear what you're saying, but to me, this is right now. Our focus is just on this off-season program. We got back in here. We had a leadership vote on our leadership committee. The leadership committee met. We set the expectations for the off-season. That was a huge part of what we did when we first got in here, and these guys have been diving into that. And Coach Mick and everything we're doing in the off-season is so important over the next. It's a 7-week window into spring ball. But, we do have a talented team. We have a talented team coming back a lot of times, but we do have some veteran players in certain spots. And I think all the stuff that we did last year with playing young players, hopefully is going to pay off next year. That's the idea. And that there were some growing pains along the way. But a lot of young players on both sides of the ball got a lot of experience.
And just those two guys, what do you do to push them to be even better without getting bored if the competition in practice or in a game it's too easy for them at times? I don't know. What do you do so that they avoid stepping into that pothole and not taking a step back, I guess?
Well, I think, and this is a conversation for down the road with these guys, is that it's really just about the process on a daily basis, and it's about them and the standard they set. And we talk about that a little bit, but it's got to be more than ever because, like you said, there's going to be games that you feel a certain way coming out of the game, but then when you play against a team that is a little bit more competition or into conference play or something like that, those things are going to pop up. So this is going to be a constant battle of who can bring it week in and week out, and that's for way down the line. But those guys will buy into that. They understand. They're highly motivated. You can tell by the way they came into that Rose Bowl, coming off of that last game, how highly motivated they are. And now they're taking the steps as leaders. They certainly played last year and were high impact guys, but now they're stepping up as leaders. And that's a whole different deal. And so we explained what a leader was, what a leader does. And if you want to be a leader, go meet us in the weight room in 15 minutes. And we did. And a bunch of guys went in there. We voted on that. And now these leaders have been selected. And now we're into this off-season program, which I think is going to be critically important to when we get into next fall.
Got time for just a couple more folks. Front row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Obviously, 4 new assistant coaches, 3 of them on the defensive side of the ball. One of which hasn't been in college football for over a decade. The other 3 are clearly moving up a step as far as high-profile programs that they're working with. From a recruiting standpoint, when that's the case here, what did you see in them as recruiters that that they'll be able to recruit at this level, especially at some of these spots where in the past we have seen it kind of dip when certain coaches have left?
Sure. I think the first thing is relationship building. I think when you look at all these guys and you ask around, and certainly we do that, we asked around with a lot of people. You ask about the people that they've worked with, coaches, the players that have played for them, the people areas they've recruited in the past. You just ask questions, and finally, when you get the feedback back, you get a feel for who they are. And so that was the first thing, was the relationship building. And the second thing is the development. And all those guys across the board have developed at a high level. So when you combine the two of those things, then you're usually going to have a pretty good coach, and that's kind of where we start.
You obviously, this isn't the first time you completely revamped the defensive coaching staff. You did it when you first got hired, but it's a little different now that you've been a head coach for a couple of years. But does this maybe change the approach and the timeline of when you expect certain things to pop from a commitment standpoint in building this class, especially on that side of the ball when you're trying to either rebuild new relationships with people or just build relationships?
That's a big part of it. I think it's going to take a little bit of time in that area, but it won't take very long. I mean, people understand what this is all about. We're not a drastic change in terms of schematics, and I think we got some guys in here that know how to develop at a high level. So it's creating a lot of excitement. The feedback I've got from recruits is they understand who the staff is that we have on defense, and they're excited to get here in March and April and watch some spring practice.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up over here, third row right, Jeremy Birmingham, Letterman Row.
Right, obviously, there's 11 new early enrollees, there's 2 transfers with Chip and Tanner. I mean, how have those guys adapted in these first couple weeks? You haven't been here, you've been on the road.
Right.
So you're relying entirely on Mick and those guys.
Yep.
What's been the feedback about the young guys?
Went through every guy today and got some really good feedback on all of them. I think it's a good class. I do think the two guys coming in, Tanner and Chip, have brought us a little bit of a veteran leadership there, but there's also some leadership already being created there. And again, nowadays with social media and the internet and everything that goes on and the text messaging, these guys have already had relationships before they got here. They've known each other for years. I feel like years, but at least months. So when they got here, it wasn't like when we got here and we showed up and just got the chance to meet each other when we first showed up to preseason camp. Now they come in January. They've known each other. They're in beautiful apartments. I mean, it's a whole different experience. And so far, the feedback we've got has been great. So now these guys get a chance to really spend 7 weeks working on their body as they head into preseason or into spring practice. So that's been good, but a lot of good feedback.
Heading into Wednesday, obviously, Hero signed, so you can maybe give a little input into his recruitment and what it was like recruiting a kid from, Bavaria and then as you head in with 2 commitments that you're hoping to sign on Wednesday, how different is it to go into these late signing periods now without really any stress?
It speeds everything up. Now you're working on the 23 class, so which is great for the head coaches being out because you get to spend January spending time going to see some coaches and doing that thing, which has been hard because now that we don't go out in the spring and December is such a race, we don't really have an opportunity to get around to some of the high schools that you'd like to get to as the head coach. So that's been good to try to do a little bit more of that. Very excited Hero's coming. He signed early and then made the announcement during the game. And so, very unique situation coming over from Germany, but plays for a really good program out there, Santa Margarita Catholic. And I think, as he starts to play more and more football coming from Germany, his ceiling's going to be really high. So excited to get him here. I think he was here this past weekend, and he's excited to get going.
For Larry and his legacy of recruiting defensive linemen, it's very rare to see him get so excited about a young guy. But back at the summer camp in June where Hero was, you could see there was a visible light almost when he worked with him the first time. What was it about his game that you guys saw that translates to this level?
Well, first off, his personality is excellent. His work ethic's excellent. I mean, he just never had a bad day. And I think he's a joy to work with that way. But I also think he was a little bit raw because he was still learning the position and still learning how to play the position. So when you see the gifts and how unique his background was, it's just exciting to think about the potential that might be there.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys.